Welcome back to the Elias Macko Show and the third hour of the program. Ladies and gentlemen, this hour is action-packed with, I think, the top subjects that everyone is talking about, because we're going to tackle Ozempic, we're going to tackle pickleball, and we're going to tackle the need to believe. And when I say the need to believe, I'm talking about the need to believe in something out there. When I say something out there, I'm talking about aliens and UFOs. We're going to tackle that in a second. I do want to just start off this hour by giving you a note on the cherries I discussed. When was it? Half an hour ago? 45 minutes ago? An hour ago? I had a brief mention. And all I said was that the cherries I just bought were insane, and they were like $1.50 a pound, and the cherries are in season. Everyone go buy the cherries right now. I've been bombarded by notes and from listeners saying, where'd you get the cherries, Elias? I need to know more about the cherries. So IGA is where I got my cherries, but I got listeners sending me notes that they just bought spectacular ones at Maxi and other grocery stores. All this to say is that the cherries are in season. Go out and enjoy them. All right, let's switch gears. Canada's top scientist has released a long-awaited report on UFOs. I want to believe. Now called UAPs, by the way, unidentified aerial phenomena. It urges the federal government to create a dedicated agency to collect and investigate sightings. I say we call it the X-Files. Now, the Canada Sky Project, launched in 2022, found credible reports from pilots and military personnel that are often dismissed or ignored, and recommends a standardized reporting system, more public transparency, and better coordination across departments. Let's go to Andrew Fazekas, an astronomy columnist with National Geographic, and you know him as the night sky guy. Andrew, welcome back to the show.
Great to be back.
Get on the record here, Andrew. Do you want to believe, first things first?
Oh, I'd love to believe. This would be monumental if we could actually discover that these are, off this world technology that we're seeing flying around. I don't know if it is, but it'd be wonderful to think that. And if we want to get to the bottom of everything, we need to kind of standardize everything and be able to collect that data. As this report from the Canada's chief science advisor has said, the country's top scientist has said, we need to kind of standardize that reporting, and coordinate investigation, allow freedom in being able to report sightings by either, military, civil aviation pilots, or just regular people like you and me. And, this is interesting because from what I've read, one of the initiatives that they'd be interested in launching is perhaps an app. Maybe there would be an app that we could install. We all have smartphones. We have amazing cameras that do very high-resolution photography, video. We all have in our pockets a wonderful instrument that would allow us to capture things that we do see. And if we had an ability to easily report this, I think this would be a fantastic thing. And then put on top of that artificial intelligence, right, of being able to wade through this fire hose of data that would be coming in. This would really be a boon, I think, for our understanding of what UAPs could actually be.
But are you not at all just a little surprised, that this chief science advisor of Canada, by the way, she's a cardiovascular scientist named Dr. Mona Nemer. She's been the chief science advisor since 2017 when the role was created. Are you a little bit surprised that this is like near the top of the list here, like of things to do? I'm surprised we're talking about this, quite honestly, when we've got, a litany of other things that we probably could discuss science-wise.
Absolutely. But, there is this global shift that's really occurring. Canada is part of this global movement where more governments are treating basically UAPs as legitimate scientific puzzles. And that's really what it is. While, 95% of stuff that are being reported are basically explainable as either something that's human made or natural phenomenon, there's that 5% that's unexplainable, right? And it's that we want to dig in and kind of explain what those are. So Canada is really just joining this bandwagon. There was this other kind of report coming out recently, a review where roughly 20 governments and private UAP studies have been launched over the last few decades across continents. And, we're talking about deploying a lot of our assets like ground-based observatories, basically to gather data, make this really more of a scientific project than something that's just in pop culture.
Talking with Andrew Fazekas, you know him as the Night Sky Guy, over a call from Canada's top scientists to take UFOs a little bit more seriously in this country. Andrew, I want to get to the quote-unquote credible reports. The stuff we have heard from, military pilots in Canada and the U.S. Let's talk about that. What do we know? The stuff that is, that's credible, coming from credible sources, and maybe we have data and video to back it up, where we simply don't have an explanation.
Right. So we have to look to our country south of the border. The U.S. is really leading the charge in the government in terms of kind of having more transparency regarding UAPs. So, there's been a lot of declassified intelligence reports. Back in 2021, there was a U.S. intelligence report that basically admitted that there were nearly 150 incidents reviewed, and only one could actually be explained, by the way, back in that report, and that ended up being a deflated balloon. But it was, it was dug into, it was investigated. While there hasn't been any aliens that have been claimed in a lot of these military things, the Navy and the Pentagon in the U.S. have released videos, the famous Tic Tac, the gimbal videos from jet fighter pilots who have recorded these things with their instruments. It shows fast-moving objects captured by infrared cameras. There appear to be real objects there. Some appear to exhibit very unusual speeds, accelerations. There's a lack of visible propulsion, so it doesn't look like something that we know of how it could maneuver that in that sense. However, with that said, I think a lot of experts are suggesting that, it may still be, perhaps it's instrument errors or classified drones, but they're not really looking towards alien craft as being the number one explanation for these UAPs. But there's no doubt about it, Elias. There's Elias, there's a scientific interest that's growing. There's a global interest in it. The bottom line is, science does not say UFOs are fake. It says they are unproven as alien technology, really. And
what's scarier? Some other planet out there and aliens coming by for a visit, or that another country on this planet has access to technology that's far, far superior to what we've got on this side of the world. Well, what's a scarier outcome? And I go back and forth. I don't know which one it is, right?
Yeah, it's that, like I said, while 95% of UFO sightings are explainable, it's that 5% sliver, that mysterious 5% that keeps scientists curious. Are they aliens? Personally, I don't necessarily think so. I would love to, but I don't think so. But it reminds us that there's still plenty we don't understand about our own world and physics and all of that. What's going on? We just don't know so much.
I have a worry on the text line here to wrap up, Andrew. A listener is worried that what if they are like the Independence Day aliens or the Mars attacks aliens or the War of the Worlds aliens? We got to be prepared here. And any thoughts on that? What if they're related to any movie that we'd know? What movie do you think they're closely, those aliens are going to approximate best?
I would personally wish it would be more something like in the movie Contact with Jodie Foster.
Yes.
Where we would be able to actually contact and start a conversation and maybe and teach us something. Because I think we're still what are we called? We're called I think there was a scientist a long time ago called humans the crazy apes. That's pretty much what we are.
Well, listen, I guess the Contact version is a good version, right? There's no blood on the streets in that one. Okay, got to leave it there, Andrew. Thanks so much for coming on.
My pleasure. Clear skies.
That's Andrew Fazekas. You know him online as the Night Sky Guy.